In this episode of the Footy Wrap Up, we got did the AFL's hottest young rising star got robbed of the Derby medal on debut? Is the two rucks tactic flawed? And after 7 rounds of the NRL season, who are the real Premiership favourites? As well as injuries, suspensions, and a whole lot more. So that is the snapshot of what's going to be this episode. Hey guys, welcome to another YouTube video, and welcome to another episode of the BD Footy Wrap Up. It seemed like to me it's a bit of a shorter episode, but not much to talk about from the past weekend of matches. Obviously, this week's obviously Anzac weekend, which is a big event on this morning calendar for me, especially for me as an Essendon fan. But yeah, so over the next how long it could be, talk about all sort of things surrounding the AFL and NRL in over the past weekend. As I said, what it was the AFL's newest, hottest rising star robbed of the Glendinning Allen medal in his first Western Derby. We'll talk about that, as well as is the two ruck tactic that a lot of some coaches have employed. Is it flawed? Is it not? I will talk about that as well, and as well in the NRL, who is the real Premiership favourites, and who is in the Premiership? Who let's just say is in the Premiership window at this point. So let's get and then also talking through injuries and suspensions as well. So let's get this thing started. So the first thing I want to talk about, of course, let's go from the AFL. Is Harley Reid. Let's talk about Harley Reid and of course what a fortnight's been. Obviously, it was announced that he's going to be rested this weekend for the game against the Gold Coast Suns, which I find a bit questionable because obviously they need as much stars in that team as they can get, because obviously the Gold Coast Suns are unbeaten so far in 2024 at home. But let's all talk about the upcoming game. Let's talk about the past. Let's talk about that. So, of course, he absolutely coming off of tearing Richmond to shreds. Against Richmond to shreds, obviously getting 27 touches and a goal. And also you don't often say to the 19-year-old tear Dustin Martin to shreds. Well, he basically did, and as a reward got a Rising Star nomination for it. And let's just say he just about did the same thing in the Western Derby on his Western Derby debut against the Dockers. Which was absolutely unbelievable. Took two absolute screamers inside that as well. But for some reason, he wasn't awarded the Glendinning Allen medal, which is what you get for being best of field in the Western Derby. Elliot Yeo was awarded that, and he's also one that's also stepped up a little bit this year. Of course, he's often been criticised by a lot of people, cane corns, for his preparation, for being not fit, and all that. Well, it seems like he's changed that because I mean it was probably BOG in the game against Richmond. And ironically, the two players that talked about, Elliot Yeo and Harley Reid, probably the two best on grounds, the two players that were from both sides that were the best on the ground in the Richmond game, and of course in the Western Derby against Fremantle, were the best, no doubt about it. Elliot Yeo, obviously, and statistics sort of, yeah. I could tell by the statistics. You could tell that you could tell the reason why he won the Glendinning Allen medal. It won the medal. He got 26 touches, 6 clearances, 507 metres gained in the goal. But Harley Reid, if you look at it if you take the statistics out of it, from what I've heard, he could be, in terms of influence on the game. If you take the statistics out of it, he was probably the best. He took 2 absolute screamers, kicked 3 goals. He was he got 7 clearances in the midfield. It's just unbelievable, really. And yeah, so it's just outrageous here. If he's doing that stuff, in only his 6th game, is it? Yeah, 6th game. If he's only doing that in his 6th game, and as I said, this weekend he's for the first time he's going to be rested. Obviously, going to be managed. Obviously, if he's doing this sort of stuff, taking screamers, being an absolute monster at age 19, just imagine a couple 3 to 4 years in, he's going to be outrageous. He's going to be unstoppable. And the way he does this, he grabs the jumper, which we all thought pre-season, we thought, is he gonna do like a Horn Francis, where he only goes there for 1 year, then goes and plays for a Melbourne club, and that's when he goes to the next level. But judging by that, I think he's not going to do that. He's definitely not going to do that. I think these 3 games, the Sydney game in Gabba Round, the Richmond game, and then now this, it's just big sample sizes of what this kid can do. Because if you guys remember, I don't think he had I think he also had an interrupted pre-season though, because he was out for I remember he was out for 2 to 3 months of a shoulder injury, just weeks into him arriving at the club. So that was not ideal really for him. And for him to be doing that sort of thing, I just imagine he has an uninterrupted pre-season next year, and he goes to that next level, then who knows what he can do on that front. Yeah. So the big question was Harley Reid robbed of the Glendinning Allen medal? Sort of in a way. But I do get why Elliot Yeo won the medal. I do get why, because he was probably the best player on the ground in the derby, and statistics back it up as well. So yeah. But Harley Reid, he is coming, and I know, and it's sadly for Gold Coast fans, he's not going to be playing over up on the Gold Coast this weekend. But sure, afterwards he'll be back in, and he'll definitely definitely be one of those ones to watch. Definitely, he's one of those players. I think you just cannot take your eyes off him, because anything can happen in any way. So yeah, so you just cannot take your eyes off him in that sort of way, to be honest, as well. But to round off this, as I said, was Harley Reid robbed of the medal? Kind of, but as I said, I do get why Elliot Yeo won the medal, and statistics do, as I said, prove that as well. So yeah. The next topic I want to talk about is, and it's reared its head this week. This week, and you probably might be asking yourself, well, what are you talking about? Your thoughts on the Sam Draper thing and that sort of stuff. Which I will talk about that at the end, but which was an unplanned sort of thing. But anyways, but pretty much so. Yeah, but another thing that came out of that is the two ruck tactic, which is everybody, which I won't be surprised if in a few weeks has everybody talking. There. So and like as usual, I want to get ahead of the curve. So yeah, so I want to ask this question: is the two ruck tactic now flawed? Because yeah, like as many people have said, if it's a pure ruckman and another ruckman that can go forward, has natural forward craft, then that works perfectly. Or that has backman craft and they can go back, or that could go that is a swingman that could go both sides. That could work perfectly. But two ruckmen nowadays, just two pure ruckmen that don't have any don't have any forward craft or that can go back but just don't often go there enough, basically because they're ruckmen in a way. Yeah, that just doesn't work. So these are the teams from what I can remember. These were the 5 teams over the weekend, over this past weekend that had the two ruck system from what I can remember, and that was Carlton, Collingwood, Essendon, Fremantle, and Port Adelaide. So Carlton, of course. So first off with Carlton, I would give a big tick to that with the partnership of Pitnet and De Koning because Pitnet, he's a pure ruckman, but with De Koning, he's actually he's been on his own because Pitnet's been mostly out injured, so he's had experience at ruck. But he also, when Pitnet plays, for example, he goes down forward to support Mackay and Curnow. And those three there in that game against GWS, they combined to 9 goals between them, which is scary considering that everybody has their focus on Curnow and Mackay down up forward. Now they got De Koning down there. And now that's something, and that would work definitely to the Koning strengths, because everyone's going to focus on Curnow and Mackay in the forward line, and those two are going to have the most dangerous key backs in each team, and then there's the Koning, who that they're going to have the least amount of attention build off. So yeah, not that doesn't mind Curnow and Mackay because they're freaking guns, those two. Anyways, but that partnership works. The same thing was with Collingwood with Darcy Cameron and the big American Mason Cox. So pretty much. So it's the same thing with Darcy Cameron when he has also I think out of these 5 teams that do have this two ruck system or two ruck tactic, I think both of them have a bit of forward. They're the only side that have both their two rucks that they mainly use have a bit of forward craft. So basically, like Cameron, when he's proven since he's gotten to Collingwood that he is a reliable kick for goal sometimes, and so too does Mason Cox most of the time. And then when Mason Cox gets totally beaten in the end, and this is the sort of thing that's made Craig McRae so good since he's made his way over to Collingwood, is basically finds the right time to basically switch him around. So basically, or give Darcy Cameron a rest and put big Meso in the ruck, just to up his confidence a little bit. Even though technically it hasn't worked basically. But from out of these 5 teams I've mentioned, they're the only team I can remember that both ruckmen have a bit of forward craft. So basically, if Fly wants to, if things aren't going well for Coxie up forward and then Darcy Cameron in the ruck, if he's totally dominating in the ruck, for example, on Anzac Day, for example, if Draper and Goldstein, I'll talk about both of them in a sec, both dominate both of them dominate Cameron, then he can swap them around. So basically, swap them around if he wants to. So Darcy Cameron could go down forward and basically, and then so basically he goes down forward and then big Coxie goes in the ruck. So yeah, so very versatile. So very versatile. That is basically the word I've been saying, is basically those two are basically versatile in terms of their ruck stock. So yeah. Speaking about Goldie and Draper, Essendon, of course, I give a big X on them because those two, and it proved on Friday night as well. I mean, I would love to be honest, see Goldstein play up forward. I would love to see that, and then spent maybe like 60% time up forward and 40% in ruck, and then the opposite way with Draper, where basically 70% of the time for Goldstein out forward and 30% time in ruck, while for Draper he would have 30% time up forward and most of his time in the ruck. That's what the suggestion I've basically come up with. But from what I've learnt is here, they are two very different ruckmen. They're two ruckmen. Draper's like one that just belts it forward, and Goldstein is very much a type of, I like to call a palm ruckman, where he just palms it down to the midfielders. What this reminds me of is back when we won the flag in 2000. We had also two different ruckmen in John Barnes and Stephen Alessio. Now, Barnesy was sort of like Drapes, where he would just belt it forward, and then Stevie was more Goldie, where he was palming it down. And this was how good the midfield group in 2000 was heard Mercedes, Mercury, Blumfield, all these guys. That's how it was so good. Was we had two different tactics for this. When one was when Barnesy was in the ruck, and the other one was when the Stevie was in the ruck, which was when Barnesy belts it forward. They know what he was going to do, and they're basically running where the ball is going to go, and that's when it is, yeah, and that maybe causes the you'd have, for example, Hurdy as in the centre, Mercedes as ruck rover and Mercury as rover, and they would just be all spread out. So basically, he belts it, and then basically they're already gone by this point. And before, as I said, before the opposition even noticed, they're gone. Then when Stevie's in the ruck, they're basically tight into the ruckman. So basically, as Stevie palms it, so basically palms it down, and then basically, and that's how good they were. Yes, and that's, you could say that's what Scotty's trying to do, but that midfield of Merritt, Parrish, and all that, they're not. They're definitely 110% not as good as it was as that side. But that is what reminds me of is that thing. Really, and we all know Goldie is just a short-term solution to try to basically, be there as a mentor to Nick Bryan as well, who is a bit inexperienced, is a bit of an inexperienced ruckman, let's put it that way. But he has had a few games under his belt. So and I won't be surprised if he eventually goes one, it plays this year, then plays next year, then because he's been in the game for a long time, then maybe retires and maybe goes into it as a ruckman coach. So it basically continues on with developing Nick Bryan, and then maybe there's a thing or two that Draper can learn from him. So we all know Draper and Nick Bryan are the future rucks for Essendon, definitely, and Goldie's more short-term solution in a lot of ways, but those were ones that remind me of in there. For Fremantle, of course, Sam Darcy, he came back for his first game of the year on the weekend. And there's some doubts persisting because so far it seems like now that Fremantle's form from the start of the season when they won their first 3 games is starting to egg away. It's starting to be egging away now because and what's bad about this is that their defense is still like top 3, top 4 best in the league right now. It's just they can't score. That's the problem. That's the main problem here. If basically you're at the point where basically if you score like 8 to 9 goals against Fremantle, you basically won the game because theoretically because they can't score. That is their main problem. We all thought that they sorted those. They were trying to get a forward system, get an actual forward system in place throughout 2023. That's why it ended up falling back in 2023 compared to 2022. But to be fair here, and Carlton proved that because remember back in 2018, the preseason 2018. They were all going, everyone at Carlton was going, we're gonna, because they weren't a great defensive team, but they were decent. They were a decent defensive team back in 2017, and they go, we're gonna sacrifice that to be more attacking and more scoring, and they end up winning the spoon after. So you better be careful with that type of thing. And Fremantle did do that in 2023, dropping down from what was it, 6th on the ladder in 2022 to basically 15th in 2023. But the only thing for them was that the field was pretty close from 15th upwards, really at that point. So but back on the two ruckman thing. So Sam Darcy, obviously, and we all know how good Luke Jackson is when he's playing a ruck. When he's playing as a ruckman. We all know how good he is. We all know it. The problem is clearly for them, the 2 ruck system doesn't work because Jackson has no impact whatsoever when he's playing up forward. And the problem is for Sam Darcy is clearly Jackson is a better ruckman than he is at this point right now. So what does Darcy do? What possibly could he do? Possibly. Well, his problem could be solved probably in the trade period, where because there was rumors that were swirling around during this past off season where, or currently still is right now, the possibility that he could go to Geelong, could go to Geelong where the Cats could improve their ruck depth, and possibly go for the 2 ruck tactic of their own with of course with Darcy in the ruck, and then also with Reece Stanley, which I don't think that would work also, but I don't think Chris Scott would go for that, let's put it that way. But I think for me, the 2 ruckman system, which was promised when Luke Jackson came in at the end of 2022, that hasn't worked. I mean, most of 2023, when Darcy and Jackson were in the same team, it rarely worked. That's the problem here, and the same could be applied for the next team, Port Adelaide, with the 2 ruckmen that they bought in big Ivan Soldo from Richmond and Jordan Sweet, and this could say. It could say that this is probably the worst of the three red X's amongst all these teams. I mean with Essendon, Goldstein, I think he could be a good forward. He can be a good forward. Darcy and Jackson, well, one of them possibly could leave at the end of the season, possibly, so go over the door for Jackson to basically be the sole ruck, which I think he should, because he's had the most impact in the ruck as he did up forward. I heard a speculation that maybe put Jackson as ruck rover. I know that was the position that he played when he was playing junior footy, but seriously, I mean, putting him as a ruckman, as a ruck rover, come on. Let's put it that way. Come on, seriously. But yeah, but these 2 here, I mean, Ivan Soldo, he's got a bit of ruck craft, but not much of it. I have to ask people who were Richmond supporters. I know my boss. He's a boss at work. He's a Richmond supporter, and he was very happy. He was a bit happy to see Ivan Soldo, I think he wasn't happy at all with Ivan Soldo leaving. But by the looks of things, he has a bit of ruck craft, but not a bit of forward craft, but not much of it in a way. And then Jordan Sweet, I haven't seen much of him. Let's put it that way. I can't make a comment on that without seeing him for real, and I haven't seen much of him. But yeah. But at the moment it's a bit of an X as well. So yes, that's a bit of that in mind. So to round off this topic, is it flawed? Well, as I said, it works when these 2 ruckmen have, one is a pure ruckman, and the other one is just a part-time ruck that goes forward or goes back, or is a backman most of the time. It mostly works like that. But when it's 2 pure ruckmen, I'm sorry, that doesn't work. If it's 2 great, like Melbourne proved it last year when Gorney and when Big Brody and Maxi were in the same team, and they abandoned that halfway through the year, and it caused it caused Grundy to obviously to leave for Sydney, and then we all know how he's got back to form there. So yeah, but yeah. So as I said, that does not work. I mean, the only, like maybe like 10, 15, 20 or so years ago, maybe 2 pure ruckmen that both with both being two different styles, that being a belting ruckman and then a palm ruckman would work. Now that doesn't work really, to be honest. I think, but nowadays both are basically, there's basically sometimes for most that combined with both being or choose to being either belting ball forward for most of the time, or bouncing between belting the ball forward and then palming it down. Mostly nowadays, anyway. So basically, yeah. But is it flawed? It's getting towards that. Let's put it that way. I'm not saying that coaches should stop using the tactic, but it's a good tactic to give ruckman a rest. But with two pure ruckman, I think that's when it gets flawed for some teams. Let's put it that way. The NRL, so let's turn our attention to the NRL. Of course, there's not much news to report out of it for the NRL, to be honest. I mean, over the weekend, of course, there was plenty of routine wins and plenty of upsets, like the Storms tight win against the Roosters, Dragons shocking upset the Warriors. I mean, the Eels, we don't know where they are at the moment. They got belted by the Dolphins. The Panthers were a routine win. Gold Coast winless season continues. They can't buy that. Even though they're getting closer and closer and closer to that win, they can't buy a win at the moment. And then the Bulldogs upsetting the Knights. Which that loss for the Knights has made worse. I'll get to that in a moment. And then obviously the Sharks, who currently at this point are on top of the ladder at this point. So that gave me an idea for who is in the Premiership, who is currently at this point 7 rounds in, who is in the Premiership window. Now I've combined the positions of basically positions of points for and against. So, for example, the top 3 for points scored are currently North Queensland, the North Queensland Cowboys, the Brisbane Broncos, and I'm trying to find it here. New Manly Sea Eagles. Those are the top 3. While the top 3 in points against, top 3 in points defence, which are the best 3 defensive teams in the league currently, are the Penrith Panthers, the Melbourne Storm, and hang on a second. Hang on a second, I might have to look at this pretty hard here for a second. I don't know why it's not. Hang on, let me pull this up here for a second. So yeah. No, actually, yeah. I think the Sharks. I think I accidentally put on my notes here. The Sharks and the Storm both second in points against, which is, I think, one of them spurred. I think that might be the Sharks, probably. But I think it's probably the Sharks, probably. So I got that one wrong on that one. But yeah. So those ones, yeah. So I think it. I think it was the it's in third. So I might have to do a late change. One up here. So basically, if I change that, so here it is. So currently, who's the best? Who's the best right now? Who's leading? Who's clearly in the Premiership window? Who's clearly in the Premiership window at this point? At this point in time, that is shockingly in their second season in the NRL. That's the Dolphins, because they're top 4 in both points in points scored and top 4 in points conceded. which is crazy. They're doing that in the second season. I know, still early days, 7 rounds in, but yeah. And then and then afterwards you got the Sharks not far behind them, but from third down to 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. So from down to 11, from third down to 11th, it's very tight. It's very tight. I mean, got the Broncos, the Panthers, the Warriors, the Roosters, the Raiders, the Roosters, Bulldogs, Storm, Sea Eagles, and the Cowboys. They're very tightly bunched in that window. Very tightly bunched in there. And then you got this third group you got the Tigers, Dragons, the Eels, and the Knights right now. They're also tightly bunched in there as well. And then the last group is, of course, the Titans and the Rabbitohs, who are not going that well at the moment. Let's put it that way. But according to of course the points for and against, the Dolphins are currently premiership favourites at this point. Despite them, look at the ladder here. If I check the ladder, despite them being in third on the ladder, I think they are the current premiership favourites at this point, based off of the points for and against, in a way, and they're heading the premiership window. So they're clearly in that right as we speak right now. But there is a bit of a logjam in amongst the Brisbane Broncos, the Penrith Panthers, New Zealand Warriors, the Canberra Raiders, Sydney Roosters, Canterbury Bulldogs, Melbourne Storm, Manly Sea Eagles, and the Cowboys. So that's 9 teams. There's a 9-team logjam in the middle tier there. According to my calculations here in this whole premiership window type of thing. I was gonna do it as a sort of a numbers of pages sort of thing, just like what Fox Footy did with the AFL in terms of their premiership window, so I can show you guys. But I couldn't get it to work, so I just had to abandon that idea really. So I abandoned that idea, to be honest. But yeah, so it's a very tightly bunched up in amongst the midfield, obviously, and I'm probably gonna revisit this at some point, maybe towards halfway through the season, because there is 27 rounds, so maybe about between round 13 to 14, maybe maybe round 14. I revisit this to see who is really in this window, but yeah. So I might revisit this later in the year at some point, and then revisit it again in the 3 months in a couple of months time after that, and then one final time after like round 21 or so, just for example there on that front. Anyway, So now moving on to the injury front. You've got injury front here, cause a couple injuries in the AFL here. A couple injuries for the out of the round for the Crows. You have forward Sam Berry, who suffered a minor foot issue during the game against Essendon. But the club is still hoping he would overcome this in time for the game again in this weekend against North Melbourne. But while backman Brodie Smith, he was able to play out the game with the Bombers, despite him having a back issue. But he will be monitored over the course of this week to see if he will get up for the game against the Kangas at Tasmania. One player who won't be playing this weekend is Brisbane ruckman, the big Oscar McInerney, the big O. He got concussed in the slugfest in the hard slugfest against Geelong, and he has entered into the AFL's 12-day concussion protocols, which means he's going to miss the game against GWS over at Monica. A pretty big bit of good news and a bit of bad, a bit of okay news and a bit of good news, really, for the Blues on the injury front. Defensive pair, Jacob Wiedering and Zach Williams. We all know that Wiedering has just recently recovered from a preseason injury, from an injury that he suffered in the preseason. And then Zach Williams, he's also still recovering. He's just started getting back this season after being out for all 2023. I think all 2023 with an Achilles injury, I think. Or with an ACL injury. I think it was ACL, I think it was. So he's just come off that. And they're undergoing fitness tests this week after injuring their quad and Achilles, respectively, in their win over GWS. So yeah. But in a bit of good news, for the Blues, their key players, their key players in Adam Shearer, David Cunningham, and Mitch McGovern all three of them are 1 week away from returning from their respective injuries. So that's good news for the Blue Baggers on that front. For the Cats, and of course, I said with the Wiedering injury, this makes things even more intriguing here with the concussion of at the game at the Gabba of Cats star backman in Tom Stewart. We all know how good he is. He got concussed in that game against the Lions, and he's also entered into the concussion protocols. The Giants small forward Brett Daniels, he will undergo a fitness test on his knee after experiencing soreness in the game against the Blues. Port Adelaide veteran Travis Boak, good news for him, has resumed full training after recovering from a back injury which he suffered at Gabba Round against Essendon. But it's still questionable if he is able to play in the game. Play this weekend. We don't know. Two of the Tigers two of the Tigers key players in Dylan Grimes and Jacob Hopper will both return from wrist and knee injuries respectively, which is good news, which is some sort of good news for the Tigers fans on the injury front, because they've been absolutely ringed with injuries in recent weeks. And then finally, St Kilda forward in Dan Butler will be missing a month after straining his hamstring in the 10-goal loss to the Dogs. So yeah, and that was when he was playing as a sub, mind you. So that's not good going. That just summed up that Thursday night really for the Saints. For the NRL's injuries now, and the big injury that came out of the weekend was the ankle injury to Knights captain to the Newcastle Knights captain in Kalen Ponga. He is expected to be out for the next 3 months after injuring his flank. Which is the same injury. If you guys are AFL fans and Collingwood fans, we all know that was the same injury that Dane Swan had, which basically, if you think about it, caused him to retire. So yeah, but I'm not saying that Ponga's going to do the same thing, but it's going to be a long road to recovery for him, and also for the Knights as well, because obviously their form is it's not as bad as the Rabbitohs and the Titans, but not really, but not far off. Let's put it that way. But in a bit of good news for the Knights, their centre and Dane Gagai will return for the game against the Dolphins from a calf injury. So yeah, and then two big injuries because in the Anzac Day game between the Dragons and the traditional Anzac Day game in Sydney between the Roosters and the Dragons. Both sides have key injuries. For the Dragons, that being winner in Michaeli Ravalula, Laura, he will be ruled out with knee soreness, which caused his late withdrawal from St. George Illawarra's win over the Warriors, and then for the Roosters duo, Victor Radley and Daniel Tupou will miss the Anzac Day game after suffering a hamstring with a hamstring strain and a hyperextension of the knee, respectively, last weekend. Speaking of duo, the important duo for the Broncos of Ezra Mam and Selwyn Cobbo will both be ruled. It will both miss the game with the West Tigers with a finger issue and a shoulder complaint, respectively. For the Parramatta Eels, their forward in Bryce Cartwright is going to sit out of the game against the Manly Sea Eagles to overcome a serious rib cartilage issue. For the Warriors, their second rower in Kirk Capewell will be ruled out of the Anzac Day game against the Gold Coast Titans in Auckland. It doesn't matter anyways because it's going to be an absolute blowout. Let's be real here. With a throat injury, which will keep him out for an extended period, so we don't know when he's going to come. He's going to come back. And alongside Ponga, this was the biggest issue coming out of that weekend, was Raiders halfback Jamal Fogarty. He the other day had surgery on after he injured his bicep and will be expected to miss 12 to 14 weeks. So that's about also 3 months, 2 to 3 months as well out of the game there for him. The suspensions, there was a fair few of them in the AFL, let's put it that way, and a fair few appeals as well. So two of them in the GWS. Let's start with their captain in Toby Green. He was offered a 1-match suspension for rough conduct against. I'm trying to remember the Geelong the Carlton player, but yeah, for rough conduct. The club chose to appeal the decision. Unfortunately, it was upheld, which means he will miss the game against the Brisbane Lions up at Manuka. Jesse Hogan, and also later on, obviously Jesse Hogan he was also offered a one match suspension for striking Lewis Young, which that the club also appealed the decision, but this time they were successful because I think I read that they couldn't, they couldn't provide proof that the actual hit was or couldn't find any insufficient evidence. They found insufficient evidence to see whether that the impact was low, because they initially graded the impact as low, but they couldn't find insufficient evidence. So basically, that's how they threw it out, and because of that, that's how Jesse Hogan, who's the current leader in the Coleman Medal race, will be free to play against the Lions up at Manuka. And then West Coast key back in Tom Barrass. He was also offered a 1-match suspension for a dangerous tackle on Dockers forward Michael Walters, which you may guess, you've guessed right. The club appealed the decision, and much like the Toby Green decision, it was upheld, which means that 1-match suspension stands, which means he'll miss the game against the Gold Coast Suns over up on the Gold Coast. So that's a bit of a blow there for the Suns. Only one suspension really to report for the Knights. Really, and that was of the Knights is Jack Hetherington. He was offered a 1-match suspension for a grade 2 contractory conduct. So yeah, that was the only suspension there worth talking about, basically. And lastly, I want to talk about, obviously, I'm not going to talk about the initial Sam Draper diving on the ball in the last seconds, because obviously everyone's been in the AFL media landscape has talked about it to death. Let's put it that way. What I am going to talk about, though, is it wasn't until yesterday that I heard on the news that Sam Draper which he admitted on a podcast that he doesn't mind it. Obviously, he doesn't care about it. He doesn't take it seriously. But people were sending him death threats in DMs on Instagram, and on Instagram, which I know, yes, he doesn't take him seriously, which is I like about him in a way, but that's not surely that's not acceptable. That's not acceptable, and I bet you most of those DMs were from Adelaide supporters. I don't, and to be honest here, I don't care whether it was an Essendon supporter or an Adelaide supporter. I don't care. Those sort of death threats are unacceptable in the game. They're unacceptable. Yes, I do get it from Adelaide. It was clear, and yes, it was clear that if it was any time in the game, Draper would have been caught holding the ball. But on the flip side of things, that it would have to be the biggest ballsy field umpire ever to give that holding the ball with 1 second left in the game. You'll be ballsy to do it. You'll be ballsy to do it. And I don't care if you're in front of 100,000 people at the MCG, in front of a packed house at the Gabba, or in this case, in front of 50,000 vocal Crow supporters at the Adelaide Oval. You have to be the most ballsy umpire to give that holding the ball. And unfortunately, this case for Crow supporters, but fortunately for us, and I was just having a freaking heart attack because I thought, oh no, don't tell me they're going to win this game after the siren again. But fortunately enough, he said no, and the game was over anyways. But yeah, I understand that. And it's possibly almost all but finished the Crows season before it's even started. But sending him death threats on Insta in a DM, that's low. I mean, surely. Yeah. And in fairness to Drapes, he said, I don't care about that. I don't take him seriously. Which, yeah. But what people need to be mindful of is there is some players that take Instagram DMs, especially death threats, seriously, and there are different guys that handle, they're different players that handle social media, especially when it comes to something like what happened with Draper they do it in different ways. I mean, Draver's like, I don't care. I don't give a stuff. I don't care about this. I just laughs it off. And then there's guys that are like, oh my God. And there's other players that are like, oh my God, this guy wants me to be run over by a bus and be dead. What do I do there? And I mean, people need to know, need to think with their brains, and need to think with their brains and not on their feet, and basically go, oh my God, this guy's cost us a freaking game, cost us a final, like for me, I'm not that sort of guy that does sort of things. Like, way back in 2021, do you think I was Insta DMing Cody Waitman and Cody Waitman said, "Oh, I hope you bus runs you over and kills you"? No, I don't do that sort of stuff. And that's what I don't do that sort of stuff, and that's what gets me respect from people that know me, because I don't do that sort of drastic stuff. But I'm not saying that all people should be like that, but they need to know that there is consequence for that sort of stuff. Anyways, it just, when I heard that, it just basically bothered me. Let's put it that way. Like, there's sort of scenarios where basically there's people that do take it seriously, but there's some people that don't in a way. So, they don't take it seriously like Drapes, but some people that do take it seriously, they go, oh my God, what do I do here? And that sort of stuff. So previously it's caused a lot of people a lot of these players to not do social media anymore, because basically that's why they get because they get death threats and that sort of stuff. If something like this happens this weekend, it doesn't matter. Please don't do it. But to be fair, we all behave in a different way. So basically, yeah. And anyways, but yeah. So that's it for a bit of a shorter episode this time. There was not much really to talk about over the past weekend in both the AFL and the NRL. So yeah. So like this video, share to anybody who's an Adelaide Crows fan, or an Essendon fan, or a West Coast Eagles fan, or in this case any fan of any team in the NRL. Let's put it that way, because there was not much to talk about with the NRL. Let's put it that way. Comment down below what do you agree with what topics I talked about? Do you think that do you guys think that do you guys agree about the two ruck system, about it being flawed? Other things for NRL fans, do you agree with me that that combined with positioning for points for and against decides who's Premiership favourites? Who knows? But yeah. And one last thing, somewhere down there, click on the big red button which is labelled subscribe, which helps me out quite a bit. Until next time, guys, I'll see you all later.